Arrays are a way of storing a sequence of numbers or letters. In Matlab, an array could be something like 1, 2, 3 with these square brackets, or you could have a matrix. So this would be a two-dimensional array, and that's where Matlab originally got its name, Matrix Laboratory. Okay, so it's designed for matrix operations. You want to multiply matrices, operate on elements. Use square brackets for matrices. So you could store, for example, the history of some values. You might want to access maybe just the second value in that history, or you might want to access 2 through 4 in there. Okay, so 2 through 4 is just going to print it out right here. You can also use an array inside a loop, and in this case you have some length of your history, which is going to be equal to 5. So for I at 1 to 5, we're going to display all of the history values. Okay, so we have just these three numbers right here that we're displaying. You can even do a for loop to access the values of an array with if statements inside. So I'm going to use if history is equal to 37.2, then I'll display middle temperature. Alright, so there is the middle temperature. Okay, and then let's go ahead and insert values as well. You can use the end and then add 1 to it to put it at the very end. So for example, if I run this, then H is going to be 1, 2, 3, and then I've added 1 to it at the very end, which is a 4. So you can also remove some elements from an array. Now the way you do this is you just put in the values that you want to keep, and then you put in the other values that you want to keep, just leaving out the ones at the end. So I could do that with something like 1 to 2, and then I could go 4 to end, for example, if I wanted to, or whatever that number that you want to exclude. So you could have just 1 and 4, something like that. Okay, so if I run this again, and I run it, I just have 1 and 4. You can also insert values in the middle of it. Okay, let me put this back in. Okay, and rerun this one, rerun it, and then rerun this. Okay, so I can put in a 2. Here's my original one, and then I want to put a 2 right in here. Okay, so I put in the 2 right here. I did 1 to 2. I included those on the left, and this one is on the right, 3 to end. It's just 3 to 3, and then I put in the 2 right there. Alright, you can also assign new values. So you can take an array, and then you can calculate with all of the values, calculate, maybe multiply by 9/5 and add 32 to convert it to Fahrenheit. So if I run this, I've converted all of these degrees Celsius into values, equivalent values in Fahrenheit. Let's go into the activity now. The user is going to input temperature values to an array. One temperature value is collected each second for 20 seconds. If you have an open connection, then clear the connection, clear lab, or unplug and reconnect the Arduino. So what we want to do here is go ahead and store the value in T1. So what I'm going to do here is just say T1 I is going to be equal to lab.T1. It's going to pause for 3 seconds. So it's going to go through this 20 times. I'm going to make this just a little bit faster because I don't want to wait. And then in the end, we'll display T1. I'm going to put a semicolon after this, just so it won't display each time. And let's go ahead and run it. And it looks like I need to reload the firmware for Octave. or I can switch over to Matlab. I was just using Matlab, so I'm going to change over to the Matlab kernel instead because I already have the Arduino drivers on there for Matlab. Okay, I could switch over to Octave, but I won't take the time to do that. Alright, so looks like there was an error. I have an unsupported symbol here. Looks like I needed to do here num to string, and then here num to string. Okay, to make that run, and anything else that I'm missing for my display. Okay, I don't think I do. Let's go and just try this one more time. I'll restart my kernel. Alright. Try this one more time, just see if it is able to print those out. Okay, I've got another invalid text character there. So I'm going to pause it, and then I'll come back once I figured out the error. Alright, I think I figured it out. It wasn't, I don't think it's the parentheses down here, but in Octave you can have either the hash symbol or the percent. Matlab doesn't like that, it just wants percent. So I'm going to try to run it again, and it didn't like that either. Alright, let's try, Okay, I've got another error. I'm going to pause it one more time. Okay, I finally found it. It was just that the Arduino needed to be reset. Okay, so I'm going to just delete these as well, and then I'm just going to put in TM and then the I, and then let me go ahead and just run this again. It's going to run, and then it's going to generate these 20 values times, and then also the T1 values, and then it's going to turn off. Okay, so it's going to display these values, I, and then a colon with the temperature value, and then it'll also display at the very end, it'll display T1. Okay, I could have put a semicolon here as well. There are the values as it started heating up, and then it also stored them here, and I see that I got a list of 1 through 20. Alright, let's go on to the next one now. We'll make a for loop that uses at least 5 values. So I'm going to put 5 different values in here, and so I'll start off with 20, 30, 40, 50, okay? And then the last value should be 0, just to turn everything off. And then we're going to make a loop, a for loop. Okay, I already know it's going to be 5 for I equals 1, 2, and then I can do length of my array. That's going to give me 5 values, or I can just put a 5 in there. I need to have an end. And then what I'll have is a 3-second break in between, so I'll put a pause for every loop, and let's go ahead and turn on the LED and both heaters. Alright, so I'm going to connect. This is going to be lab equals TC lab, and I'll make sure I clear the lab before I start. Alright, I'm going to do lab.led and turn that on to my array I. Okay, I'll also turn on the heater values and get the ith value in there, and then also Q2 as well. Okay, so I've just set the sequence that I'm going to use even before I start. And then at the very end, the last one's going to be 0. It's already going to be turning it off. Let's just go ahead and clear lab just to make sure. Okay, so every 3 seconds, it's just inserting a new LED value, and you'll be able to see the brightness of the LED change. And then after it's done, it's just going to close the connection to the lab. Okay, so this is an example of using an array to help you define how the program is going to execute. And it looks like it just finished. Okay, so that's it for arrays. The next one that we're going to go over is cell arrays. So arrays are good for just numbers, but cell arrays are going to be for collections of objects or strings or numbers. So a mixture of all different types. And that's going to be cell arrays.